Here, what would be there, yeah?
The students at this high school in Zurich started learning English in the second grade.
Iceland, what do they do on New Year's? Yes?
Now, at age 13, they enjoy speaking it,
That's right, they have a huge
but
bonfire.
grammar is
What date
another
is
story.
New Year's Eve that come in a tin, okay?
It wasn't hard for me at all. I thought it was interesting, not demanding. Once you've learned the rules, you get a feeling for what's right and what's not.
I don't like the written assignments as much as the oral ones. I'd rather talk.
Sometimes I say words that I don't exactly know how to spell. It's just easier if I say them and don't have to write them.
We're going to do this next exercise here.
The high schoolers have an American teacher, Michael Roth. Ideal conditions for learning the language, one might think.
And then you pick some and just how they are when you have
They speak freely and have a good ear for correct pronunciation. The teacher puts it down to their early start with learning English.
It's just a book and it explains you what.
Im Allgemeinen haben sie mehr Selbstvertrauen mit der Sprache.
In general, they have more self-confidence in speaking the language, and that's very good. But what's negative is that they have very little idea of correct grammar, and they're much weaker in written English than spoken English.
Viel schwächer, als sie zum Beispiel mündlich sind.
The festival is exciting because there's so much to see and do.
That's right. Good.
Simone Pfenniger is a linguist at the University of Zurich English department. She's been following the same classes at this school for over 5 years and testing their progress in English. She wants to find out if an early start really equals a head start.
It's important that you proceed as quickly as possible because we would
Using
like to
oral
get
surveys, essays, grammar tests, and questionnaires, she evaluates the language skills and motivation of some 500 high school students.
Put your pens aside. Thank you so much for doing this. I'll drop by and collect your... Thank you.
Then she compares the progress made by the early starters with that of the late starters, students who didn't have their first English lessons until they were 13. The results were surprising.
The most important finding is that in language learning, it's not so much a matter of the earlier the better. It may well be better to start later but more intensively. But to think that if you just start at a young age, that'll do the trick, that's a false conclusion.
Her study indicates that the late starters quickly made up for lost time, and that they're generally far more motivated.
Here we see the motivation of the early starters and the late starters in English. It's immediately apparent that the motivation of the late starters is significantly higher than that of the early starters.
Simone Pfenniger believes this has mainly to do with the way English is taught in elementary schools, at first with only 2 lessons a week.
Which card shall we take?
Young school children learn words and phrases through various games. Spelling and grammar come up short. But later in high school, this is just what they'll have to know, and many students will start to feel frustrated.
In practical terms, this isn't about returning to the old ways. It's more about optimizing the existing early language instruction. We have to decide how to optimize it and what the possibilities are.
Another of the study's findings is downright alarming. By the time the early starters with English reach the age of 13 or 14, they're doing less well in German.
We found that quite independently of when students begin learning a foreign language, it's better for them to get a solid footing in their own language first, German. Then they can build the foreign language on that foundation. The late starters in our study had significantly better skills in German than the early starters, and they benefited from them when learning the foreign language.
Simone Pfenniger is herself an English teacher, but she recommends giving school children a solid foundation in German and starting later but more intensively with English.
As a researcher, I'd say the ideal English curriculum is an intensive one, no matter what age the students begin. Specifically, in addition to the regular 4 to 5 hours of English per week, other subjects could be taught in English as a form of immersion. More input, more output, and more possibilities for interaction.
Good morning, everybody. How are you?
These findings may well ring in the next round of the debate over foreign language learning in primary school.
Very good.